To the official launch of the Youth Vegetarian Association. I'd like to start, however, by stressing that this is not just an association for vegetarians or vegans. It is a youth movement for anyone who accepts that the kind of practices we just witnessed in that opening video are not only unnecessary, but are inhumane, are unjustifiable, and are completely and utterly unacceptable. It is a movement for anyone who recognises the massive contribution of the meat industry to climate change, to environmental degradation, and to an unsustainable future. It's a movement for people who realise that vegetarians and vegans generally live 6 to 10 years longer than meat eaters, with a drastically reduced risk of heart disease and various types of cancer, among several other life-threatening conditions. It's a movement for the philosophers among us, who posit the apparently outrageous claim that we do not in fact have any right to abuse these animals at all, and that doing so equates to a prejudice no different to racism or sexism. And it's even a movement for people who care about people, the hungry and the poor who receive nothing while billions of animals are force-fed until their stomachs almost or do explode. Basically, this is an organisation for everyone under 26. The voices of our future politicians, journalists, lawyers, factory workers, farmers, and voters. I've been a vegetarian since I was about 10 years old. Of course, back then my turning point was not anything as thoughtful or directed as speciesism or activism. It was just, wait a minute, maybe these animals don't want me to eat them. It was a purely emotional precursor to utilitarianism, which is basically the idea that the morality of our actions or inactions is based upon consequences, minimizing pain and suffering because these are bad and their absence is good. We can drastically reduce the pain and suffering within the meat, dairy, scientific and entertainment industries without causing ourselves any pain or suffering. So why don't we? This is one of the ideas advocated by Peter Singer, who you saw in the video, in his book Animal Liberation. I think most vegetarians and vegans idolise Peter Singer and are very jealous that I was able to meet and interview him. The rest of the interview with Peter Singer will be uploaded to the YVA website later this week for anyone who's interested. Peter Singer is also a strong advocate of the speciesist argument. What gives us the right to treat non-human animals as we do? Like us, they're sentient, they can feel pain, pleasure, fear, loneliness, frustration, and love. So what separates us? Is it because we're at the top of the food chain, because hunting and eating other species is just animal nature? The difference there is that other animals hunt and kill out of necessity, whereas we do it for fun, for taste, and for fashion. So then people say, well, it's because of our intelligence. We're much smarter than chickens, so we have every right to abuse them however we want. I reckon there are a lot of people who know other people who aren't as smart as they are. Doesn't mean the less smart person has an obligation to be served up with barbecue sauce. There are even a significant number of humans who are less intelligent than animals, whether permanently or temporarily, such as those with certain types of disabilities and babies. Nobody would suggest that it's okay to eat them just because of their lesser intelligence. Besides, we share about 96% of our DNA with chimpanzees, and intelligence is, after all, a genetic trait, but we torture them and call it a scientific experiment. If we're going to choose intelligence, why not blue eyes, dark skin, female reproductive organs? It's a bias against all species other than our own, and it's no more justifiable than racism or sexism, ageism, heightism, or any other ism you could possibly think of. But I actually think that this scene from Ace Ventura 2 sums it up much better than I can.
That's quite a rack you're wearing. Perhaps I could get you some fluffy new slippers made from the heads of innocent and defenseless baby seals.
Who is this ghastly man?
Ace Ventura, pet detective. And you must be the Monopoly guy.
Hey.
Thanks for the free parking.
Another activist, McGuire. Activist, yes.
Activist, yes.
Mr. Ventura, there's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of nature. You should try it sometime.
Alrighty then. You know something? You're right. It's lovely, but I fancy myself an autumn.
Unfortunately, we're going to be denied that particular course of action. The YVA's mission is to raise awareness of these issues and to bring together all those who care about them, working closely with partner organisations such as Animal Liberation and the ACT Vegetarian Society in a combined effort to effect real change in our community, our country and our world. We aim to be an inclusive organisation, to not push anyone away because they aren't a hardcore vegan or vegetarian or even a vegetarian at all, but to instead focus on what each individual can bring to the different aspects of this movement. Through everything from public demonstrations, petitioning, awareness campaigns and investigations, to government and industry lobbying and rank and file political activism, we will attack these problems from every angle. It's time that speciesism was put to rest. Thank you again for coming, and I hope you find today's presentations worthwhile. Feel free to walk up to the back of the room at any time. You can sign up for any or all of the organisations represented here today and help yourself to some vegan food samples. I'd now like to introduce Greens MLA Carolyn Lakuta.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for inviting me here this afternoon. The first thing I'd like to do is acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Ngunnawal people and to acknowledge their elders past and present. Like Chris, I'm a vegetarian. I've been one. I was trying to think. I don't know. It's more than 20 years. It's quite a long time. I had a period when I sort of was one and then stopped being one and then started again. So it's certainly quite a bit more than 20 years. And I'm a vegetarian basically for two reasons: for environmental reasons, which I'll talk a bit more about, and for ethical reasons, similar to what was this one. And the number of vegetarians is growing. And there is probably 4 reasons for that. Animal rights, as we it's a bit confusing. We've got 2 keyboards here just to I can walk across it. It's fine, it's fine. And yes, as Chris said, Peter Singer has been an incredible influence on the politics of animals and animal rights and speciesism. I don't think anyone had thought of the word speciesism before Peter Singer. And then there's also many spiritual traditions don't think that killing animals is an appropriate thing to do. And I've got a few quotes. If you have men who will exclude any of God's creatures from shelter of compassion and pity, you will have men who will deal likewise with their fellow men. And that's St. Francis of Assisi. If a man aspires towards a righteous life, his first act of abstinence is from injury to animals. That was Albert Einstein. Now moving away from the Western tradition here. When a man has pity on all living creatures, then only is he noble. And that was the Buddha. And lastly, the greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. And that was Mahatma Gandhi. So there's throughout the world, there is a big tradition of respecting animals and not killing animals, and certainly not mistreating animals. There's also, of course, as Chris mentioned, the health issues, and my partner is a vegan. I'm only a vegetarian because I must admit I do like eating cakes, and most cakes got a bit of eggs in them. But my partner is a vegan because there are a lot of very serious health pluses to being a vegan, and I'm actually quite hopeful that as time goes on, as us baby boomers